This summer, our Geo-Logos team with my husband Ryan and me, Samantha Corcoran, joined 50 brothers and sisters in Christ for an epic 10-day journey across the Atlantic over to the Mediterranean and to the spot where East meets West, so that we could tour the 7 churches of Asia Minor from the book of Revelation here in modern-day Turkey. And then we cruised over to Greece to follow the footsteps of Paul in Athens and Corinth. Our trip was coordinated through Aristotle Travel with excellent tour hosts Drs. Everett and Eileen Huffard, and a fantastic group supervisor named Fotini, our Turkish guide Melih, and our Greek guide James. Now this trip really is 4 trips in one. 1 full day in Istanbul, several days in Turkey, and an Aegean cruise across the Greek islands over to Athens. This video will focus just on our 1 bonus day in Istanbul. Subscribe to my channel to see videos about the other parts of the trip. We began our trip in Istanbul, where the continent of Europe meets the continent of Asia. This is also where the Black Sea begins its path down to the Mediterranean. Zooming in, you can see how Istanbul is divided in 2 by the Bosphorus Strait, connecting also to the Golden Horn. Dr. Mark Wilson suggests that the harbor along the Golden Horn likely was the embarkation point for a messenger, perhaps Silas, carrying the letter of 1 Peter, and this may be what the letter looked like. This is Papyrus 72, one of the earliest known manuscripts of 1 Peter. Imagine this letter being read around Bithynia, or modern-day Istanbul. With only 1 day in this magical city, we spent it here in the Sultanahmet district. This 2,500-year-old city features multiple UNESCO World Heritage Sites, including an ancient Roman Hippodrome, the Blue Mosque, the Hagia Sophia, Topkapi Palace, and more. Just a few blocks away from these sites was our hotel. We stayed at Hotel Innova, here in the heart of the Sultanahmet district. Zooming in Google Street View, you can get a glimpse of the front of our hotel and the very busy street where we got to walk with the locals. The best part about this hotel was the view at breakfast. Our first sight of the day was the ancient Constantinople Hippodrome. A short 5-minute walk from our hotel transported us back nearly 2,000 years in time to where chariot races used to happen. This track was built in AD 198, but reconstructed by the Emperor Constantine in 330. Ryan snapped this great picture of me right there on that park bench. And I was so surprised to learn that the part we were walking on was only a small part of the actual hippodrome. And you can almost imagine Ben-Hur racing by. Several surviving obelisks and columns remain in the center of the hippodrome. Here on the right, you can see the Egyptian obelisk from 168 BC from Pharaoh Thutmose II. Zooming in, you can see Emperor Theodosius with his family watching the races. Notice the wreath that the emperor is holding. This is the Stephanos, the victor's crown, given to the winning charioteer, and the same one we read about in Revelation 2:10 to the church at Smyrna. We moved on from here to our second sight of the day, the Hagia Sophia. This building was the foremost church in Christendom from AD 360 until 1453. It was then that Mehmet II the Conqueror captured Constantinople and turned the Hagia Sophia into an Islamic mosque. In the 1930s, Turkey's national hero Ataturk turned the Hagia Sophia into a museum. Now, most recently, it's been turned back into a mosque, which is why you see us wearing headscarves. Here, Melih is showing us some of the early foundations of this 1,500-year-old building. For 1,000 years, this was the largest building in the world, with the highest dome, rising 182 feet above the floor. You could fit the Statue of Liberty underneath it with some extra room. When Christianity became a state-sponsored religion in 323, they used a Roman public building design called a basilica as the model for the first church building. Now here's what's special about this particular building and what changed the course of architecture history. They took the basilica and then topped it with a dome. This is called a pendentive dome. And you see these little triangles here around each of the arches. This is what helps spread the load from the dome down through the arches to the floor. What's so fascinating and paradoxical about this Hagia Sophia building is that it has shiny gold mosaics of Jesus and Mary and various saints along with this gorgeous Islamic calligraphy with phrases from the Quran, all in one space. It's like the history of Christianity and Islam in the early ADs, all in one place, and it is beautiful. The Hagia Sophia has been at the top of my bucket list for years, and it did not disappoint. We left Hagia Sophia and moved on to our third stop, Topkapi Palace, which actually is only a few steps away. Topkapi Palace was the royal residence of the Ottomans from 1465 to the 17th century. During the Renaissance, the Ottoman Empire controlled much of the Mediterranean basin. Melih explained that Ottomans also protected religious freedom and allowed Christians and Jews to practice their religion as long as they paid their taxes. And the empire reached its peak in the early 1500s under this sultan, Suleiman the Magnificent. Even our guide Melih was gushing about this Turkish soap opera from about 10 years ago called Magnificent Century, and it follows the life of Suleiman the Magnificent, his family, court intrigue, and his beautiful concubine who became his wife, Hurrem Sultana. Not joking, it was my favorite YouTube show to watch during the pandemic. It's a fabulous show, I've linked to it below. And I couldn't believe we actually got to see their palace in person and walk through it. It's now a museum set up to show you what life would have been like. Divided across multiple courtyards, the palace has a library, a treasury with a mint, hospital, a bakery, janissary quarters for the soldiers, stables, a kitchen staff of 800 that prepped food for 4,000 people, and of course the famous harem, where the female members of the Sultan's family lived. It alone had 400 rooms, and we ended our palace tour with a stunning view overlooking the Bosphorus. And I happened to find it here on Google Earth. Here's the balcony where we took this photo. The breeze was so refreshing after a hot day of walking all through the palace grounds. At this point in the day, it's lunchtime and we've cleared 10,000 steps, so we take a quick break. I actually head back to the hotel for a rest, but Ryan continues on with the rest of the group to go see the Blue Mosque and the Grand Bazaar. We'll start with the Blue Mosque. Built in the early 1600s by Sultanahmet I, the Blue Mosque commands your attention with its 5 main domes and 6 minarets. And the blue color comes from over 20,000 hand-painted glazed ceramic tiles from Iznik. Iznik is actually the ancient city of Nicaea. The fifth and final stop for the day is about a half mile here from Sultanahmet Square. We're headed to the Grand Bazaar. The Grand Bazaar is one of the most well-known shopping areas in the world. It has 61 covered streets and over 4,000 shops. This place is a dream for those who love to haggle to get a good deal. Now, it turns out we actually had time for a bonus stop on our trip. So for those of us who didn't get to go to the Grand Bazaar like me because I was taking a nap, we got to go see the Spice Market or the Egyptian Bazaar. If you have a sweet tooth, this is your place. So many free samples of all kinds of confections and nuts and fruits and Turkish delight. I thought you might like to hear the sales pitch that convinced me to buy some Turkish delight and dried apricots.
Price of everything here, level per 1 kilogram. Why I'm telling you this one? You will look around here in many places showing you half kilogram prices. We have no tricks like this. Everything by kilogram, but how many grams of them you like, you can buy as you want, as you like, no problem.
And that was a delicious way to end our time in Istanbul. Now the real trip begins, because that afternoon we hopped on a plane, flew to Izmir, where we would begin our tour of the 7 churches. So join me in the next video where we cover the 7 churches plus the island of Patmos.